Sup, Shred Sexies. Welcome back. Death to the Fingers. I've had a pretty interesting couple days. Starting to, figure stuff out, I guess. I won't get into it. It's with court stuff, but man, oh man, they just absolutely make the situation awful. Think of the worst people on the planet, worse than the DMV, but filled with like the most sort of controlled arrogance you've ever seen. It's just like, wow, okay. It's just a humiliating experience. And then guess what? It's like you open one door, you're like, get it done, and 17 more doors open up. Oh, it just cracks me up, man. I'm getting too old for this shit. Anyways, it's just crazy. It's crazy. I'm just like, oh, you guys, I have to file another judicial complaint because honestly, we can't let this stuff go anymore. And the more you start complaining, the more they'll be like, listen, stop doing stuff like that or else it'll be a problem. As you can see, like, wow, things are escalating like I can't believe. Just like, what? Politically speaking, Donald Trump's working his magic. It's not working. His approval rating is cratering. They're like, oh, Donald Trump among Republicans that believe in MAGA is like 70%. But the real number is like 36, 35%. It's probably more like 34, 33, and they're just pumping up the numbers. Which is actually, that's normal. That's good. Really, for a politician. It's not like, oh, he's cratering, but the old Don, he lost a huge portion of his voter base when he did Don stuff. I mean, what did you expect? That's the saddest part about it. You can keep telling people over and over and over again that voting and all the rest of the stuff doesn't actually accomplish something. Filing a lawsuit does something. And it's because you're fighting back. You're actually doing something. That is the thing they fear the most. Whatever that is, writing a letter, getting your opinion on the public record. You know what I mean? Asking the court for a declaration or clarification on human rights. If it's legit, okay, don't go there with some stupid question. Do your homework and make a real argument and ask them a legitimate question to make a declaration on. But, like sitting around yip-yapping on Twitter doesn't do anything. Voting doesn't do anything. Going to like political rallies and marching down the street with a flag, right? Talking on TV. Those are all like bread and circuses shit. So the true pathway forward, absent, the ultimate solution. I saw a crazy interview where the guy's just like, end politicians, and just kept saying it over and over and over again. I'm like, wow, for like TV and whatnot, that's pretty extreme. Like, listen, you can be mad, but the thing is you can just say no, right? And then, of course, if you start to take an active interest in how society actually works, you can start to affect change or try to. Just be very, very selective about how you engage with the system formally. Because if you want to use it as like sort of like a legal tactic, be prepared to back down and you're going to have to pay the fees. So it is a legit sort of methodology to threaten somebody and be like, stop slandering me or libeling me or whatever, right? But it's a gray zone. It's not like they're saying something concrete. They've added allegedly or, maybe, whatever it is. So it's not really a statement of fact. So that's what I mean. You got to understand the concepts, everything else. I was thinking this morning, I'd actually know what the word ultra vires, which is Latin, what that actually means. I was like, what does that actually mean in law? Like a year ago, in 2025, I'm like, what does that mean? Because it's pretty popular. So there's other words too. You got to look it up, and that's just it. Whenever you're doing, whether it's music or the law or checking government out and how, your human rights interface with government authority. Like, listen, we need a system of laws and whatnot. You can't just be like popping off, but there's a limit. When somebody breaks into your house and threatens your family, how far can you take that? And it's up to you to decide. But that's just it. There's a very famous case in Canada called Resecession of Quebec and whatnot, when they tried to secede from Canada and effectively become their own, like, whatever, mini France. But it didn't work. The Supreme Court shut it down, of course, because they're like, we can't threaten Confederacy. And that would threaten sort of like the federal government's authority under the Constitution Act 1867. And they can't have that, right? Because it goes from the king, and he delegates the power down to, in our case, the Governor General. And the Governor General then appoints the Privy Council and the Attorney General. And those guys disseminate the power down to the provincial level, where you have the provincial Attorney General and the Ontario government. So it's Canada, and then Ontario, then the municipality where you live, Kingston, Ontario for me. And then it goes down to you, right, as the resident, as whatever else. I was having a conversation with AI talking about this status called the inhabitant, because in legislation, in the Municipality Act, it says, oh, well, the the municipality basically incorporates the inhabitant that's living, existing, if you will, in the natural habitat, like in the geographical area. And they turn that geographical area into a municipality, which is a corporation in law. And then they just incorporate you into that municipal structure, the corporation. You're now taking up an office, basically, with duties and obligations like property tax, like keeping your lawn clean, and basically being subject to all the city municipal bylaws. That's what being a resident means. That's why they can show up and be like, hey, obey me. But you can exercise your human rights and stave that kind of like serious situation off by just giving them notice, and they'll be like, all right. And you can diffuse it early, hopefully, and just exist. Now, listen, does that mean not pay taxes and all the rest of that stuff? No, it doesn't mean that. It means essentially it's up to you. You know what I mean? So let's say a bunch of people got together at the town hall and they're like, we just want our tax money to go in the municipality. We don't fix up roads, build a ramp here, the boat ramp, fix up this place to be a park for the family or whatever else, build a school. There's public input, and then it's sort of directed through their representatives to sort of be like, okay, we need water purification. You know what I mean? We don't need 4 more city managers making $100,000 a year. We need to take that money and give it to trades and essentially build a water purification plant and then train people to be able to operate it, creating good jobs. But that doesn't happen anymore, right? It's sort of like a top-down sort of corporate strategy at this point. They just start disseminating the talking points, and then we have whatever. You see I saw this really interesting sort of turn of events, like obviously with a lot of this mass immigration that's going on all over the world, especially in Europe, Canada, the UK, Scotland. I was like, what? Ireland is starting to pop off. Boys, what's going on, man? I guess you guys have a bit more of a tradition, but still, yikes. And New Zealand's probably getting pretty saucy. So the thing is that things are getting sort of destabilized, but they're like, one of these benefits of that is you get like this international sort of diversified cuisine. And now the counter talking point is, well, we have the recipe, right? So you start to see this sort of contrived and non sort of effectual form of communication where you feel like you're winning some sort of war or something, but you're not. You're just stuck in the matrix being fed this placebo, if you will, that stops you from actually really just existing within the rules. And think of it as a game. Like, yeah, it was frustrating. These people are just, they're frustrating to deal with. Because the thing is one of your human rights is to go to court. Now, I didn't do anything wrong. And now that the truth is being exposed, the people that were perpetrating the sort of naughtiness and stuff like that are basically caught red-handed. So now all of a sudden people are like, well, I don't want you to do this, right? And that's how they protect themselves, is they make you sort of getting in front of a judge and effectively pleading your case, if you will, very, very difficult and costly to dissuade you, right? Where they give a pass to like lawyers and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, whatever, just push it through and stuff like that. You're good. Here's a motion date, instantly like that. You know what I mean? But some Joe Blow, nobody. And that's just it. It's a constitutional right. You should be able to go to the court and be like, I have a legit problem here. And just go before the judge and explain it in a hearing, impromptu hearing, without all of the paperwork. Like, sure, write some stuff down, obviously, make your case and whatnot, and follow the rules as much. But still, there's this huge gap on the court side where they don't actually tell you what the forms to fill and all else. You have to basically figure it out for yourself. And then they kind of give you, you know, only half the picture. So it's a little bit misleading, you know what I mean? Like, listen, the onus is on you for sure, but I mean, at least give them a head start to be like, you know, check this stuff here. There's a guide for all the stuff that we expect in your package and how you should have it named. You know what I mean? If it's an individual or if it's a, you know, a corporate interest or whatever it is, because you can apply for certain constitutional rights in a, I'm pretty sure in a corporate context instead of just as a natural person. But, it's important that we do that stuff. You know what I mean? That's more important than buying into, you know, is Donald Trump going to give you a whatever, stimulus check, another one? Now that you're 40 trillion in debt, another stimulus check to basically be like, here you go, peasant. Here's this worthless money. Sorry, currency. Here's this worthless currency while I continue not to do an audit of Fort Knox. Read into that what you will, but that's just it. It's fun and it's interesting to go on Twitter or whatever else and engage in the politics and stuff and have little bickering fights and whatever else it is. Don't get me wrong, I understand the appeal. I do it too. I've sort of controlled my level of trolling since, you know, the Twilight Tweens episode. But, you know what I mean? It's just, it was Hunger Games too, but you just got to start to understand that you can do more productive things. You can start having conversations with AI and whatnot to train yourself. You know what I mean? Because here's the thing, they're going to give you pushback. So if you don't know how to respond, just like what would happen in a court, you're going to get wrecked. That's the way the game's worked. You got to bring your argument and just be like, own it. Because it's rock solid and it's true. I saw a great video yesterday talking about the essence of the human, if you will, in law. Philosophically and according to the law. So then you go to the covenants, which creates the rule of law, right? And that rule of law is presided over, if you will, by the fundamental principles of justice, which is essentially you have certain rights that can never be violated. Doesn't matter what's going on. A war, doesn't matter. Medical emergency, doesn't matter. These rights can never be suspended, never be infringed, ever. Then you have other sets of rights where you can in a whole bunch of selective situations. And then there's a one clause in there, the supremacy clause, I call it, under Article 5. It doesn't let them limit it and do any more than what's already expressed in the covenants. So if there's no limitation applied to the right, then they can't limit it. Now, there's some more nuanced stuff in there. So, do your legal homework about the word peoples and all the rest of that stuff and how to interpret a treaty and whatnot. But that's what I mean. It's just, we're supposed to take this essential core of recognition under the law as a natural person, a human being, without any statutory designation. I don't need to be a citizen, the resident, or anything else. The law has to recognize me as a human being and not some sort of corporate entity or whatever. And then after that, of course, you have conscience and belief, because living beings, I guess you could say, have a conscience. They have free will. Listen, maybe the tiger's more primitive and whatnot in our view, of course, because it doesn't have technology, but it knows when it wants to take a nap or, go lay in the water or something, or go hunting because it's hungry or whatever it is, climb a tree. That's sentience, right? You can't legislate that. You can't be like, this desire to just be free based on what you want to do and what you believe. Self-determination's in there too, but that's a more difficult sort of argument to make. But I'll just say it's an individual right. So is Article 27 about the minority. And again, they try to skew that minority word towards being like, it's indigenous people or whatever it is, but it's not. It's the smallest number within a larger number, right? That becomes the minority. And so you have the right to protect your language and culture and everything else like that. So, a little tip there without getting too close to the mark. But that's the thing. You have power and you could exercise it. And here's the thing. The more we normalized it, the more the court would relax a little bit and be like, all right, just tell us your story. And just pick the choicest ones that make the argument, and until then you just get your ass whooped. Or you just stay quiet, or you're not interested or whatever else. But if we want to live in a more just and progressive world, I guess you could say, where it's like about the freedom of the individual to just exist in society with order. I don't need to be told what to do, man. I know what to do. I'm a grown adult. I know what's right and what's wrong. I keep up with my responsibilities. I do the best I can. What do you want me to do? It's like the imposition of being a citizen or a resident, in the country where you live is, far out, sort of whatever exceeds the sort of benefit you get from whatever that entity is. It just sticks its hand in your pocket and starts taking all your money or whatever else, your freedom. And you get nothing back, really, but a bunch of obligations. Oh, here, you have to go to the DMV to get a license to drive this car on the public road. Now, should we have like some sort of system to keep track of stuff in case accidents happen and liability? Yeah, we should. Absolutely. Is the one that we have efficient? No, it's really not. And we shouldn't rely on technology either. That's a major level mistake. We're wiping out a whole class of people that used to have the skill set to be able to just do this stuff. And if, say, the computers went down or whatever else like that, now listen, if it was catastrophic or whatnot, they'd still have some sort of safety net there. But of course, that's not true. So that's what I mean. Like, how many options do we really have? There's the obvious one, of course, which doesn't lead anywhere good, unfortunately. It doesn't matter if it's fast. And listen, if it has to happen, I guess, whatever. But I'm kind of lazy, you know what I mean? Like, I don't mind putting in the intellectual work, but I'd like to do it drinking my coffee rather than getting out the, the pew-pews or whatever. So, that's just truth. I'm not trying to be like, be lazy and whatnot. You have to understand when there's the point of no return. I don't think we're there. I think what has to happen is that the people that can, who have intellectual capacity, need to make a bit of an effort, if you will, to start to assert their rights in a domain that is basically absent public representation, which is the law. So we open it up again, like it was in the 1850s, where you just went up in front of a judge. when you were something going down or whatever it is, or in this case, whatever, senior lawyer, and they would just, pronounce judgment based on your arguments in plain English without all this extra steps. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like, that's where the human rights part comes in. Instead of this complex system, which they can still have. I'm choking here. For lawyers. Go ahead. You guys can basically do that. Create this more complex system. You have to pay more, but you get it expedited or whatever else. That I'm fine with that. I'll wait my time. I'll wait my turn in the queue or whatever it is, for the poor peoples. That's fine. No problem. Just give me my say in court. Let me make my argument and keep it simple. Make your legal argument, substantiate it as best you can with some legal principles, but that's just it. You have to have educational materials, and that doesn't exist really when the government starts talking about, defending your rights. The Constitution's king. Also, by the way, the mechanism to actually access those constitutional rights is insanely difficult. Right? So, come on. It's just, it's not realistic, but it needs to sort of come into compliance because that's the mechanism we use to keep stuff, cooler heads prevailing, I guess you should say. And that's what I'm talking about. Should we really abandon that principle that we've developed over 200 or 300 years since the Enlightenment just because, there's a lot of angry people right now because they're getting screwed and they can't afford to live? I feel you. But you gotta sort of be real. It can get a lot worse, you know what I mean? Imagine if you didn't have any heat in the middle of the winter here because the electrical grid shuts down or something because fighting breaks out or whatever. That's not good. You know what I mean? Our society is incredibly fragile, and that's just it. We have to not just basically sort of counter the rhetoric on the internet that was so prevalent in shaping public opinion. That's definitely a fight, but that's a fight that's won. Now we need to assert dominance, or at least assert a position, not dominance. That's the wrong sort of mindset. A position. I have the right to stand in law and petition a court to basically be like, these people did something that was wrong to me, and not have to jump through 5 million hoops with respect to the process to just make their argument as long as it was valid. And I have no problem going through some pre-process to be like, okay, here's my claim. And they're like, all right, a motion for leave, I guess. So, I don't know. The thing is we got to do something so that we can at least try to mitigate the worst of stuff. And we can use the law in other ways too to be very, very beneficial to our cause. But nobody's going to hold the door open on you for you on this one. You know what I mean? You're going to have to basically kick the door in for yourself and just start kicking ass and taking names. And that's just it. Not be belligerent or mean or unprofessional or anything like that. But when people are disrespectful, I'm going to absolutely file a judicial council sort of complaint on this process. And just be like, it makes no sense, honestly. And it's unnecessary. This whole, file it in the court of a different jurisdiction because the court case happens to be, it's on the internet, man. I'm not going to get into it, but still, you get my point. That's an unnecessary barrier to have to jump over top of, to be like, I need to get some sort of documentation from the court to be like, I don't have to pay court fees because I'm poor. You know what I mean? But I still want to bring the matter before the court because I'm making a decent argument here. Is that unreasonable? I don't think it is. And that's just it. As long as you're trying to at least do your best to work within the system. And listen, it takes a long time to refine. So be careful. Just really sit down and think about what you want to do. But Still, you might be like, listen, I want to build an addition onto my house, and I'm not really cool with giving the city $20,000 for doing basically nothing just to have permission to do that. So that's where this skill set comes in. You can go to the court and seek a declaration to be like, I don't want to do it based on this human rights principle, and get permission from the court first, because you know that if you don't or get them to actually be like, oh, you have to seek our permission to build on your property. Now, listen, there's other steps there, and I don't want to get into it because you have to figure this stuff out for yourself, how the law works. Who owns the land? Okay? Cui bono? Who benefits? Why do you have to give this person money for something that you're living in, basically, and you're paying for? Why? And who benefits? So then find out that mechanism in law and how that interacts with the international covenants, like I said, which sets out the rule of law, the rules by which the law can be applied. So if you're applying law that doesn't conform with these rules, it's what they called void ab initio, which means void at the point of entry. I may have not got that out very well. I'm pretty shredded right now. But it's just void. You know what I mean? So that's how you got to see it. That they can make rules and stuff like that, but it's up to you to be like, hold on here. Do you really have that authority? And then have the skill set, if you will, to basically challenge it. And listen, it's not that hard. Now, listen, it takes probably 6 months or so to go through all the information and get it sorted out kind of deal. But it's, I don't know. It's definitely worth it. And that's just it. Once you get good at a really complex process, like an appeal, which is basically what I'm doing with the judicial review, you can do actions and applications, and those can be a lot easier. They're more drawn out kind of situation, but still highly effective and a great way of protecting your interests. So you can be like the city said, oh, you have to pay up for this or whatever else. Now, listen, people have asked me this before. They're like, should I just defy the law and whatnot and just build my thing and be like, I'm not paying you? No. Don't do anything that could end up with legal consequences, because at the end of the day, the system that we live in, you have to be real. The judge can be like, nah, and that's it. Okay, that's the way it works. Fair or not fair, doesn't matter. That's where the argument factor comes in. You have to corner the judge like in a chess move. So they have no real choice to be like, okay. And usually leave them a back door to be like, oh, sneak out there and just, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, I have to dispose of this matter because of this frivolous little thing here. Gone. Okay, done. With prejudice. So it can't come back. And that's it. It's over, right? Whatever. Mission accomplished. But that's just it. I would, basically be like, I need an estimate on this proposed whatever addition I'm making on my house. You know what I mean? You have the drawings all done up for, maybe you've done it yourself and whatever else, and blah, 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 and the plot of land, and, make it look convincing, and then submit it to the city and wait till they try to apply an illegal charge to you, and then that's when you take it to court. So you may be a year away from actually building the addition, and you start dealing with this right now, and you get in there and you're basically like, hold on here, you're making me pay for a privilege here that essentially it's my choice whether I want to exercise it or not, because that's just it. Residency, if you will, is a privilege. It comes under citizenship. So do you have to exercise this privilege because these people said so? Or is it up to you to enjoy whenever you feel like it? I feel like having a cigarette right now, pick it up, smoke it, take 2 drags and be like, nah, I'm done. And then that's it. Enjoyment. It's arbitrary. You can just do it whenever you want. That's our mindset. And then, of course, there's the whole sort of like collectivization issue where you got to join with like minds to be like, listen, we got to defend this bigger interest here. And then afterwards, it's like a peaceful divorce, and you're just like, okay, you do your thing over there, and I'll do my thing here, you know, and just like hopefully just coexist. I have no problem with religious people or other things like that, or even different sort of practices up to a point, you know what I mean? But there has to be some sort of uniformity. Like, I mean, what it was like in the 70s and the 80s. I'm sorry, that's what I grew up with. I don't know what you want me to say. So that's my preference, but we'll have to wait and see how things play out, because it's going to be crazy. But that's my point, is we can affect change, if you will, and create new law, new precedents to sort of carve out our own niche, which basically is a big pushback on the government interests. And in doing so, of course, we gain more freedom. The freedom to just sort of exist without actually having to prove everything all the time. It's like fractional banking. Nice, I could almost get it out. Fractional banking, right? If you negotiate a loan and they don't disclose that they're going to take that loan money and immediately invest it and turn it into 3, 7, 15, 30 times its value, and they don't disclose that in front. We're going to take this money and we're going to do this with it, which would be a serious consideration, because that's the only reason they're taking the money, because they can use fractionalized banking and increase its value in the bank's assets significantly. So you might be able to negotiate for a lower interest rate or something. And they didn't disclose it. And they're creating the money out of nothing. They're just like, here, yeah, sure, here's your loan. That's why you always get a loan. Yeah, you could probably go get and pay for it and stuff like that, but it's better just to get the mortgage and then just pay the mortgage and probably the penalty on top of it, or even just have the mortgage annulled, pay the full factor, go to the court and be like, I just want to pay what I did with it without the penalty, because the penalty is excessive and it's whatever, a violation of this, because they didn't actually keep up with the rules of consideration or whatever it is. But that's what I mean. You have to fight back in meaningful ways, starting with letters and just giving them notice and caution and whatnot, and practice your skill set using AI and whatnot. Not become a lawyer, but understand how your human rights intersects with government authority so that you can navigate these deep waters and protect your interests. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a situation, and either or sucks. I mean, it's better when you're like, you know, don't tread on me, but you know, that comes with a price in and of itself. And I think it's been exhibited many, many times. So, you know what you're getting into before you get going crazy. And that's what I mean. Just try to operate within the system and know how to handle your business, I guess. All right, that's the end of the video. I know that was a weird one, but I think it was necessary, because that's kind of crazy stuff we're getting into now. A choice has to be made. You know, are you going to sort of step up intellectually? And it doesn't matter where you live. These rights are basically almost universal. Okay, they basically apply everywhere. Just figure out how it intersects with your particular country and stuff like that, and you'll figure it out. Just go to see if it's a signatory of one of the covenants. Done deal. And then you're off to the races, right? But again, you can even make a tangential argument to be like, human rights are basically recognized all over the world, so maybe the court will take pity on you. But that's what I mean. You got to start to not be passive, not be aggressive either. Just exercise your mind and learn how to carve out your own space. And in doing so, give yourself more freedom within the rules that they created. And then we can just gradually change the system over to people that are going to be more in line with what we're thinking and how we want it to go. And then from there, society can prosper again, absent actually having to get into some serious problems. We're going to go through a real serious downturn anyways, so we might as well use that as an opportunity to just defenestrate these people, because they have no argument to be like, here, just keep drinking the Kool-Aid anymore. When stuff starts to basically really tank, and they are, we'll have an opportunity, because it'll be at least 15% of the population will probably be fined from the culling. If you started to notice about the stuff that went on from 2021 till 2023, you know what I'm talking about. It has begun. All right. We'll see you later.